When you block an avoidant ex, these are the 5 typical things that are going to happen. The first is that it shocks their sense of control. Avoidants are used to deciding when connection happens. This is something that you are probably so familiar with, where they're the ones that's controlling how much they're allowing you to express yourself and also controlling what emotions they're going to express to you. And whenever you cross that line, they use pushing away from you as a weapon to condition you to understand those boundaries and make sure that you are consistently adhering to them. But being blocked removes their emotional exit plan because that's no longer going to work. You're almost giving them a taste of their medicine. In fact, you are doing just that, right? You are saying that you aren't going to allow them to have this control anymore, and it takes that illusion of power from them and gives it back to yourself, which you've always had. But they're realizing in this moment that they can't just easily control you and manipulate you the way that they once were able to into responding and behaving the way that they feel comfortable with. So this is their first time that they're not the one that's disappearing, and they don't know how to essentially respond to that, which segues perfectly into the second thing, and that is their ego feels the sting before their heart does. Because the block challenges their self-image of being in control, that's something that causes them to spiral internally, because they genuinely feel that they're in control of everything because they had to believe this lie in order to make sure that they weren't going to have to feel certain emotions or deal with certain conflicts that they simply just don't want to, because it could lead down paths that they're not willing to go down. And the number one thing that an avoidant always wants to avoid happening is rejection, because as we know, typically one of the main reasons why a person becomes an avoidant is because their caregivers when they were younger did not meet their emotional needs, and in a sense were rejecting them constantly. So because of that, that's something that is a huge red flag and is a threat to their emotional well-being, and this avoidant attachment style was adopted in order for them to avoid that happening and ever experiencing those emotions. So they essentially interpret you blocking them as a form of rejection, and this is something that causes them to go in a spiral where they're feeling those emotions coming up and they can't really control it, but they're trying to do everything that they possibly can to try to suppress that down and convince them that they don't need to worry or feel and deal with those emotions. And that's something that their ego wants to avoid so they can maintain that sense of control. The third thing is that curiosity quietly takes over. They'll check from other accounts, mutual friends, or even fake profiles to try to get a glimpse into what is going on with you. They want to know, is this really you attempting to potentially move on from them, or is this just a play to attempt to try to get them to panic and to reach out to you, and the both of you hopefully work things out? And this is very important, and it's something that you want to pay attention to and understand, because if you block them and start posting things that you know that they're going to either respond to or understand you're trying to take a dig at them or try to invoke some kind of emotions out of them, they're going to take that as a sign that you are still emotionally connected to them, because you are. And that's something that they look for, because they're not going to take things seriously if they feel as though you are essentially connected, because they genuinely feel that it's only a matter of time before you unblock them and reach out to them to try to work things out, because that's typically how this probably goes, because you genuinely love them and you want to make sure that they're not moving on, and you know if you left it up to them, they would not reach out to you and you guys would just stay blocked forever. But that's just the thing. You want them to genuinely feel that, because it's in that realization that hopefully they're able to see through this avoidant attachment style and maybe make some attempts to want to work on this themselves and maybe come back to you when they've healed, or attempt to talk to you through this, and maybe the both of you can come together and work on this incrementally. But again, this is probably not what's going to happen, and they're going to try to do whatever they can to try to get some type of insight in an indirect way to see if you are still emotionally available, and whenever they feel like coming back, you will take them back with open arms. The fourth thing that typically happens is that reflection starts once the door is truly closed. When you officially block them, that means that there is no place that they can have some type of access to you on social media or text or calls, whatever that looks like, where they can get contact to you. When you block all access that they can have to you in all different ways, whether that's on your social media, messaging you, or even mutual friends that you guys have, if you're able to do that, this causes them to essentially really have to reflect on their actions and how this avoidant attachment style has really been the main culprit as to why this relationship didn't work. Because without the ability for them to know that you haven't moved on, because they can't see whether you're hanging out with new people or you're active, whatever they're doing to make themselves feel like they don't have to worry that you have moved on, they again start to panic and they start to reflect on how this avoidant attachment style has been the main culprit as to why this relationship hasn't worked. And their lack of effort has really caused this to happen. That's essentially where they start to regret their decision with pulling away from you and not trying to work things out. And when this is done right, it really feels like there's no chance to try to talk to you to see if there's a way to work things out. And this is something that they honestly need to feel. They need to feel that magnitude of their decisions to not try to work on this with you, because that's typically the only way to really get them to understand how this attachment style has really run amok on the both of you guys' relationship, in hopes that they're going to have an intrinsic motivation to try to work on this. And this is naturally going to come with a wave of emotions that they're going to have to feel. And this is something that internally they're not going to be able to outright avoid and just push aside. Because again, all of those excuses and distractions that they once used are no longer going to work, because they don't have that control, and it's not going to uphold anymore because you are behaving differently than what they would expect. And the fifth and final thing that you typically see happen is that the block redefines your value. This is something that is a really big eye-opener for an avoidant, because they thought that they could recreate you in somebody else. And this is primarily due to this avoidant attachment style trying to utilize this as an ultimate way to make them feel that they don't have to address the reality of potentially losing someone like you in their life due to them not engaging the way that they know that you would like them to. But what naturally comes with you blocking them is them starting to see all the different things that you did for not only the relationship, but them as a person. And this causes them to really see how special you were and how willing you were to try to do everything that you possibly could to make this relationship work, because you genuinely love them. And this is something that they probably have never experienced, but took for granted in the relationship, because again, their avoidant attachment style is trying to make sure that they're not going to have to feel the anxiety of losing you and how much that would impact them in so many different ways. So it's in this moment that they tend to see that value, which is so frustrating to you, because you would hope that they would naturally see this with all the different things that you were doing in the relationship out of the love that you had for them. And this is something that they're going to have to work through. So while these are typically the things that you see happening, I want you also to understand that there is a good chance that all of these things could happen to your avoidant ex, and they could really feel the magnitude of things, and they will still not reach out to you to not only express that to you, but to try to maybe see if there's a way that you both can work on this together. And that's something that I hope you can begin to explore, because this is going to help you start to make a decision for yourself and knowing what is the next best move for you. Because like I said, you don't know how they're going to respond to this, and even if they're going to be willing to try to work on this. And on top of that, if they do end up reaching out to you claiming to want to work on this, can you trust that this is coming from a legitimate place, or are they just wanting to try to reel you back in, and once they feel comfortable that they have you on the hook, they go right back to their avoidant ways? And I know that there's a part of you that genuinely loves them and wants to do everything that you possibly can to try to work on things, but you have to understand that a relationship requires both people coming together and trying to give their all into making the relationship work. And it should never feel that you are doing all of the heavy lifting. And on top of that, you should be able to express yourself the way that you naturally are and not have to worry, is this going to trigger something in them that's going to cause them to push away from you? So I know that this might not be what you want to hear, and I know that you're hoping that this is a bulletproof way to try to get them to reach out to you, but the honest truth is there is not one single thing that's going to guarantee that, because they are a human being and they, just like you, to have the free will to make the decisions that they want, and that's just something that they're going to have to live with. And in return, you are going to have to look within yourself and really understand what is the next best move for you, and that might mean blocking them and going no contact so that you can have the space away from them in the relationship to know what is that next best move for you. I hope that you found value in today's video. If you did, please make sure to hit that like button. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.